being human on this planet, we're always going through change. We're going through metamorphosis, and the change is not linear.
Hi guys, thank you so much for joining us. Today I'm going to be talking to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, she's an artist, writer, yoga teacher, mindfulness coach, and Mama of Earth. This is a very beautiful name that you picked for your daughter.
Thank you. Yeah, it's special. It means a lot to me.
So how did the name came about?
Before I was pregnant with her, I was going through this time of really connecting to the earth and to Mother Nature. I spent a period of time living in the mountains of Montana. But while I was there, I just kept having this vision of laying in the ground and being kind of mothered by the earth. I had this image, and the earth just began to mean really a lot. At the time of my pregnancy, I was really connected to that particular element. It felt like being pregnant with her was a grounding force in my life. At the time, I wasn't particularly grounded. I mean, I'm not a grounded person, actually. I'm more fiery or watery, but my daughter Earth, her sign she's an earth sign. And it just came to us.
I would like to talk about self-love. What is self-love?
It's a process. It's letting go of perfection. I think self-love is about leaning in to the authenticity of the human experience.
If not all your work, a lot of your work, it revolves around self-love.
Yeah.
Was it always like this?
No. Even the way I was brought up, no one ever told me that, I should love myself. Even it wasn't that my parents were bad, but in a way, the way they were brought up, loving yourself was sort of, the vocabulary seemed similar to being like selfish or, I don't know, egotistical. And of course, self-love isn't about that at all, but I never thought. I was taught to be kind, I was taught to be loving towards other people, but I wasn't taught to love myself. There were times when I probably absolutely lived the opposite of that. When I was a really, really early teenager, in the world that we live in, I think girls especially start to disassociate from their bodies, probably, around 9, 10, 11, and I definitely did that. And in disassociating from my body, I lived very much in my head. And when you live in your head, then you judge everything about yourself externally, or at least I did. So I was judging my body. I was judging, everything about the way I looked. I developed a serious eating disorder, and it was complicated. It wasn't necessarily about hating myself, but it was about not wanting to be. So essentially, that's an act of violence. It's an act of self-hate. It took being in terrible relationships, toxic relationships. It took getting to really, really dark places to finally understand and see that life really is about love. And part of that has to be about loving yourself. I mean, yoga saved me, really. That's why I still teach yoga, because it really was this gateway, this pathway to finally feeling embodied again, feeling embodied in myself. But maybe just looking up at a fingertip as I was in a triangle pose and being like, oh, this is my body. My body's powerful. It's loving.
What was in your experience? That self-love is very important, but it's not a destination.
No, I mean, I wish it was. But for me, being human on this planet, we're always going through change. We're going through metamorphosis, and the change is not linear. Self-love is work, because we're working on our relationships with ourselves. It's the same as being in a relationship, like a long-term committal relationship with someone. If you want it to work with someone else, then you have to put the work in. It's the same with the relationship with self. I think it's about understanding that, especially as women, we are emotional, we are fluid, we're connected to water, we're going to feel different things. We have to sit with that and be present. And I think having self-love, it doesn't always mean feeling great about yourself. feeling great about how you look, feeling great about the person you are, feeling great about your achievements. It's about accepting all parts of yourself and all shades of your truth. If I think about how I love my daughter, obviously, I think she's beautiful and amazing. And I love her. I love her so much. But there are still times when I'm frustrated with her. There are still times when, she's covered in like sticky mess and I'm like, yuck, you're disgusting. But that is what love is. Loving someone and obviously you have thoughts you see when, everything's not great, but you still love and support them through all of that. Is it okay to ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to know if there was, one or two things that you really took away from your journey and from your understanding of self-love, or finding out about the fact that you didn't even love yourself that much, what it is or what it was.
How it was like to discover that?
Yeah.
It was a little bit shocking. So I went down to Peru to partake in an ayahuasca ceremony. I remember the shaman on our first ceremony, he was just talking to us about having an intention and to work during the ceremony. And my intention was to work on my anger. And then when I told him that, he's like, do you mind if I suggest you something? Work on your self-love. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. So my intention became to work on my self-love. And I just had like all these visions and experiences about, the times where I didn't love myself, which was like probably most of my life, at least my adult life. Yeah. It was sad, but it was very, very relieving. And then I started working on loving myself and accepting myself. And it's like, it's not about being perfect. It's not about being right, because I don't even believe in right or wrong anymore. Exactly. Just this duality that we live didn't exist anymore. It was just like one thing. It became one, and I became one with all of it. And that was just like magical. There's the work after that. It's like, okay, here's like your problem. Now you're gonna go home and work on it.
Which is very important, I think, to anyone who is, having an experience like that or discovering something about themselves, that there is always going to be work. Like you said, there's no like end destination. There's always going to be work, and it is the integration of it all.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you.